Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Swire Ho, the promo guy. Today, my guest is Brian Berry. He's CEO of Lighthouse Leadership Group. Barry has been 2 times Global Trainer of the Year, and he has over 30 years delivering world-class performance improvements for a leader and the organization. How you doing, Brian?
Doing just great, Swire. It's good to see your smile, and thanks for pulling everything together. I know you're doing important work and getting the word out and helping organizations of all shapes and sizes kind of emerge from the pandemic here. Great job.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Before we get started, would you mind to tell the listener a little bit more about what you do and then, how you become a 2 times Global Trainer of the Year?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we got kind of an interesting background when you look at it. My background is actually clinical orthopedics and sports medicine. So I've had to deal with psychotic, egotistical Division I coaches my whole life, which is superb preparation for working with CEOs and chairman of the boards and doing performance improvement. So over the years, I've worked in all different industries in terms of medical manufacturing and working with different teams. And then I was fortunate enough to become certified as a Dale Carnegie coach and working with tech, biotech, entertainment, defense, retail, hospitality, food, healthcare, garage band startups all the way to Fortune 1. And then developing a sense to really deal with the decision makers. And as Peter of Drucker once said, who's the founder of all organizational design, he put it eloquently. He said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it's always the CEO, the president, or the leader. So I work toward working with those individuals that have the decision making, but also the scope as to what's happening in their organizations. Whether it's a small startup or a large organization, and it doesn't always have to be bad. It could be an opportunity for improvement. But those that are struggling, I work with to help reimagine what they're doing, their strategy, their team, their structure. And those companies that are doing well, I work with because they want to prevent slipping back. So, there's always something that we can work on and tune up, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that you mentioned that there are top 5 reasons for poor performance. Let's tell us what those 5 performance are, and then maybe we can get into how we can fix them.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, when we look at poor performance, research has shown, literature has proven that when performance goes down at work for you and I or any of our loved ones or colleagues, it's usually not Swire, the fact that we dropped a silly or stupid pill and suddenly forgot how to do the task. It's usually stress related, and that interferes with our judgment, our lines of communication, our problem analysis, our decision making, all that. So when I go into an organization, I find out what's happening in terms of the culture. Are they engaged? Are they not? But there's 5 distinct areas that I'll ask and go through, and it's usually one or a combination of them all. But it helps demystify what the source is, and then once we identify what that is, then we can prescribe the appropriate solution. Kind of reveals itself. So the first reason is I don't know what to do, meaning the operation, how and what we're supposed to be doing in our role has not been clarified. And there's a good rule of thumb: always define the performance first, then the performer will reveal themselves. So if I'm not clear on what I need to do, I thought you said I could do this Tuesday. I thought I was supposed to do this. If there's a miscommunication, the solution to I don't know what to do, we educate. We educate on what it looks like performing well. That's the first. Second reason is I don't know why I'm doing this. And that old phrase, well, that's because that's why I told you so. That doesn't cut it anymore. So the why's got to be extremely aligned with that individual. It's got to be purposeful. And that's where a clear vision, mission, and values comes in. And that isn't silly, cloud in the sky, kind of thing. The vision is that Monet, Rembrandt, Van Gogh painting of what it looks like performed well. The mission is how we're going to do it. And the values are how we're going to roll, all right? With integrity, with inclusiveness, with belonging, with empowerment, all those things got to be there. So why? Why are we doing this? What's the noble motive? Okay. So first we have, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I'm doing this. So the why is, all right, talk about the vision. The third is, I don't know how to do it. And we've all been in that situation. We don't know how to do it. We train, and that's different from educating. Educating is the big picture. Train is very, very granular. And Swire, I've learned this over the years with many bloody noses. The only way I sleep well at night as a leader or manager, and I'm convinced somebody owns a process, a system, a technique, a method, a procedure, a policy. The only way I sleep well at night, and I'm sure they know it, is by having them teach it back to me and teach it back to their peers. It's the only way I am convinced they own that concept, that technique upside down in a teacup, as they say. There's a Latin phrase, docendo discimus. It means we learn by teaching. So when I'm going through my training, I don't just check off the box. Yeah, they did this and hope to God it works out. I have them teach it back to me, teach it back to their peers. And chances are they teach it a little better than I do. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so I don't know what to do. I don't know why. I don't know how to do it. Those are three. The fourth is, I don't believe I can. And Swire, raise your hand if you've been in that position. Like, good God, what did I get myself into? All right. And
it's just,
yeah, we've all been thrust in, and we usually pound it out. We usually figure it out, but we burn a lot of calories and energy and a lot of stress. So the solution to, if somebody says, I don't think I can, we coach. We coach them. One thing I've learned over the years, Swires, everything is fixable. Everything's fixable. So coaching is different than teaching. Coaching is different than lecturing too. A teacher or a lecturer is, do this. I'll do it this way. And everybody's going, oh, we don't care what you think. But a coach, Swire, the definition of a coach, this is good for the listeners. A coach catches a bad habit or a bad tendency in the moment. Doesn't wait. Not many can do that. Most stand back and kind of hope to God it works out. So coach catches a bad habit or recognizes an opportunity for improvement in the moment and then offers, doesn't demand, offers a redirect or a way to make it better, and then coaches for immediate implementation. That's the difference between a coach and a dictator, a coach and a teacher, a coach and a lecturer. We can spot them at check-in. So the solution to, I don't think I can, we coach. Then we catch people doing things wrong. That's the fourth. The fifth reason for poor performance is, I don't want to. And that is a missing element in a lot of managers, right? Well, I want you to do this. I think you'd be great for this role. Yeah? Did you check with the other person? Do they want to? There's a story with Mattel. Years ago, they had an initiative, Swire, that everybody was going to get a chance at leadership in a management role. All right? No ceilings whatsoever. So they did a lot of cross-functional training, globally, different departments. It all worked well until one group revolted and it was the toy makers. And they said, why are you making us deal with people? We don't like people. We don't ever plan on liking people, and we don't want to like people. You hired us to build toys. And it was one of those, we should have asked them. So what management often thinks is good for an employee may not be what they want. Have you ever heard that term, oh, they're a good motivator? You ever heard that?
Mm-mm.
All right. Oh, they're a great motivator. Well, we know through, again, history, literature, and research, that nobody is going to be forced to do something they don't want to do. There's an old term, you can't push a rope uphill. It just gets bound up. So if they don't want to do it, it ain't working. So leaders can't motivate anybody to do anything, but what leaders can do, Swire, is create an environment where others are motivating themselves to change. So that's good listening and finding out what's happening in their lives, where are they, what are their needs, do they have parents that are terminally ill that they're taking care of, do they have kids, what's going on? You don't have to get too personal, but a good leader always has a pulse read on the needs of their employees. It should never be a mystery as to what they want. And if they want to do it, they can, work toward it, just as long as the role's clear. So those are the 5 reasons for non-performance. So a good manager, a good leader is going to look at an employee and find out what's going on in each of these. When you follow that process, you could usually ferret out what the real problem is. And then once you identify the real problem, then we could come up with a perfect solution, put it together. So does that help?
Yeah, that's a lot of to think about. Not only you touch on, what on the surface, like on deep down, we talk about our denial for problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our willingness to learn something new, and then at the end, it's flat out rejection of the new idea. So I think it's it. Do people? I think the most difficult part is they don't want to do it, right? Or is it a combination of each of the 5 reasons? And you know, are we all changeable? Are we all coachable?
Well, there's an old phrase, hire for attitude and train for skill. Because one thing, we can't force attitude. We'll pound the training into you, but you got to come with that attitude. And the best thing to do is to have that signature. Now, there are at least 5, 6 generations in the workforce now. All right. There's traditionalists, and those are kind of the 70 and older, Warren Buffett, different groups. A lot of them still working, still on boards. Baby boomers. Okay. We're the knuckleheads that think we could do it well. We usually goof it up, but we've got a really cool soundtrack, probably the best that's out there. All right. Then you have the X and Y generation. Those are the least number of bodies out there globally, not just in North America, globally. There's just not enough of them. Those are the ones that are supposed to be at the SVP, moving up the chain. There's just not enough bodies out there. Then the next level are the millennials, right? Who have been tagged with kind of a bad, vibe, but be careful there. And then you have the Gen Z, which I think is a misnomer because there's nothing after Z, which means we're kind of screwed, right? But they're appropriately called the media generation. Those are the ones that have never, ever not operated off of a device. They think the millennials are slow and inept, all right? Now, I got invited to be the president of the National Human Resources Association years ago. I'm not necessarily an HR guy by trade, but I know how to do a lot of that stuff. But what I do know, Swire, is how to bring in people way smarter than me, which is not hard to find. They're everywhere. But we were able to go through a lot of workshops on how to deal with multi-generational workforces. How do we do that? How do we even identify what they need? And we usually walk out of those with a headache and sweating because there's no real answers until this one friend of mine. And she ran, we had all these thought leaders, Swire, in the audience, probably about 300. Wharton, Cornell, Michigan. I mean, big time HR leaders. And she asked the question, she goes, how many in the audience are aware of the list, the top 50 best places to work awards? All the hands went up. You know, you got Newsweek and US News, you got Forbes, bajillions of them. She goes, imagine working for a company where the first 90 days of probation are really in your face, very intense, and super competitive. And if you screw up, you're hired and fired. And I'm a big audience watcher, and I look at the audience, and a third of the audience just goes, yuck. It doesn't sound too good. Another third went, yeah, whatever. Another third went, yeah, likey. I thought, wow, that's kind of distinct. She goes, now imagine working for a company where the first 90 days of probation are all cross-functional trained. And when we hire you, because we will hire you, you're going to have a mentor that will be right at your side to make sure that all your answers are there, okay? And I'm looking at the audience, and the same reactions all shifted. Whoa, interesting. She goes, now imagine working for a company where the first 90 days of probation, and whether or not you're hired, is not a decision of leadership, it's a decision of your team. 3 different, entirely different cultures. The reactions all shifted again equally. Third. And then she went, and up on the screen, Swire popped 3 companies, all in the top 50 best places to work awards. All of them with 3 different cultures. There was one in there that was super intense. And if you screw up, you're fired, and very competitive. Voted top 50 best places to work by their employees. Then you had a middle one, all the cross-functional training and all the support. The third one I remember at the time was Whole Foods. And the way they operate, their dairy and bakery departments all ran their own P&L. They all had their own kind of a team approach, kind of internal, pretty neat. 3 distinct cultures, all voted by their employees in the top 50 best places to work. How did they do this? Then she said each one of these companies had a less than 3% attrition rate. They attracted the best talent, and they didn't lose it. That's anemic, right? They all had a balanced representation of all 5 generations. Traditionalists down to the media generation. All different cultures, male and female. And she said the reason they were able to do this, and this is real important for the listeners, the reason they were able to do it is because they had a signature, a corporate signature as to how they were going to roll. Meaning, if regardless of your background, regardless of your culture, your age, if you like a competitive, intense, fast-paced environment, come work for company number 1. If you can't stomach that, don't apply and don't whine about it. If you need a more nurturing environment, okay, that cross-functional training, those companies are out there. If you're a Rambo and like working by yourself, don't bother applying to Whole Foods. If you like working in teams, though, so it goes back to the point where the company, particularly in post-COVID, need to be post-COVID relevant and reimagine what their organization needs to look like in order to perform well. And once that vision, that mission and values is there, then you define the performances. And once the performance is defined, then you cast. avoid missteps. 70%, and you and I met at the LA Chamber,
Mhm.
70% of the organizations in our region, our Southern California region, are small businesses. It's huge. One stat I learned that was really compelling is 90% of that 70% are 20 employees or less. Okay, that's big. In the second largest city in the country, all right, that's big, which means a company of that size can't afford any missteps. So as you're hiring and bringing in your teams, you got to make sure that you have a signature and there's no miscommunication. Quintilian, centuries ago, had a quote that many leaders have borrowed over the centuries. And he said, "I'm not interested in communication that's understood." All this, you know, the audience went, "What?" He said it again, "I'm not interested in communication that's understood." He says, "I am interested in communication that is never misunderstood." There's a big delta there. So that's why having a clear vision, mission, and values is so critical. And it needs to be always evaluated based upon the markets, based upon what's going on in the economy. There's an old engineering term: when we plan, God laughs. Things will shift from quarter to quarter to quarter. So good leaders are always tapping the wisdom of their managers, their leaders, finding out what's going on. That's where you get really solid inclusiveness, that sense of belonging. And the phrase diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't just mean skin color, doesn't just mean age. It means diversity of thought. Now it's strengthened now. You heard diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion is now being upgraded to the term belonging. So if somebody feels like they belong in a culture, they're going to produce. I want to belong. I want to be part of this diverse, cool, weird, eclectic, energized, forward-thinking team. I could fit in. And that's really what it's all about. That's where you get a really good rock star. So again, going back, when I put a team together, I find people way smarter than me that have diverse thought, because I've got a laundry list of defects. I need to hear their insight, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to be way better than what I came up with, right? So when I put a team together, that's what I look for. Kind of that greatest hits approach of thought. Have you ever heard the phrase when you ask a leader, what's the most important asset in your organization? What do they usually say, Swire? It's the what?
The people.
Yeah. That's not a bad answer. We've heard worse. Oh, it's our logistics system. It's our pound holdings. Really? All right. When they say it's the people, I take them a step further, Swire. I said, it's not just the people that's your most important asset. It's the untapped potential of the people. So good leaders are recognizing that potential. Now you're rocking. How's that sound?
Yeah, and when I was researching for our conversation for today, I thought about a recent episode of what my kids just went to a week long Scout BSA camp, right? First time in like what 15 months. So I think about what you just said, and then how they apply in there. Obviously, the Scout Master was very experienced. He became an Eagle Scout in 1977, the year I was born, right? And then think about you bringing kids anywhere from 11 of age all the way to 18, and then they will be camping outdoor. They'll be
Mm-hmm.
learning how to use a knife. Some of them are shooting shotguns and
Uh-huh.
rifles. And as a parent, and oh, these are kids, how would they able to do that? But then, like all the example that you just mentioned, they have weeks of meetings. We have to get all the equipment that is on the list. They check every single one, make sure that we all have the equipment before they go. They have, obviously, with the pandemic, we have to do body checks. We have to get vaccination cards, or you have to get tested. So all this safety precaution. And then when it gets there, the older scout would actually show the younger ones how they break out the tent. How would they survive outdoor, by themselves. And then when they actually walk into the range, before they can touch the rifle, the range master make sure that they follow all the steps that is necessary for safety. And then they also, like you said, mentioned that if you don't follow this route, you're out of here. You're not touching it. So they had a fun time. They learn a lot of skills. And then the older scouts are able to, know how to ask the right question. And the older ones are able to learn how they are showing the skills by teaching people. Then you actually
Sure.
improve your own knowledge as well, because you're now able to walk people through, 15, we have a 70 kids troop. It's a big one. So
That's impressive.
imagine,
What troop
kids.
number?
Yeah, there are a lot of kids. So imagine that, my son happens to be the senior patrol leader this year.
He's
So
SPL. All right.
yeah, he's learning a lot of things, like, glad that he is, doing the leadership role. So he has to use his word to basically lead the whole troop. So I think, as you were saying those examples, I could imagine all these little steps, different generation, especially try to coach leadership to kids that are 11 years old.
Right.
It's very difficult. You have to be engaging. You have to be, you have to keep them interested. So I think sometimes what leaders will do is they just talk about what they know really well, but without thinking about what the other generation will respond to. So, kudos to all the leader in the troop. They make it fun. They make it exciting for the kids, and then they're learning a lot of new skills throughout the experience.
Yeah. Well, the scout model is amazing, because if it is truly a scout-led troop, they're going to learn from experience, and good leaders are good storytellers too. So, hats off to that leadership, and particularly, your son with SPL. That's going to be a great experience, and I can't wait to hear his Eagle project. So if you need an outside Eagle counselor, let me know. I speak fluent Scouting.
He just finished it, so I feel that I could have gotten my best too, going through that experience. But yeah, it's a learning process. Like, how do you motivate others? How do you manage and encourage others without you being, do what he could do it himself, but then how do you involve younger ones, and how do you
Right.
involve, sometimes you think, oh, this, kids is just running around all the time, but then when they are at the project, if you give them the right task for the right people, they really focus. They're a totally different person. But then if you give the wrong person the wrong task, that's why people will mess up. That's why you say this person is lazy, this person doesn't care. But do you think like that? Do you think we have to give the right personality to right tasks?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. And again, when we have a role, it's no different, Squire, than a movie director or Broadway play director. They know what the play will look like when it's going to receive an award, an Oscar, a Grammy on a song, all right? And then the roles are clearly defined. You're going to perform this and we'll get an award. And then you cast appropriately. But if you put the wrong individual in that role and they're not clear on the role, they don't have confidence in the role, they're probably going to fail, right? And you also have to ask them, and the way to do that is you define the role. The role performed well is going to look like A, B, C, and D. Is this a role you're interested in? Yes or no? And you need to ask them, if yes, are you committed to performing it? Yeah, but I'm not quite sure I can. Okay, well, what resources do you need in order to get up to speed? But it pays for a leader to ask, define that role, and then ask the individual the magic question: is this a role? Okay, is this a project you're interested in? Yes or no? It's a binary question seeking a binary answer. Good leaders leave nothing to chance. If you presume that individual will do it and they don't want to, it ain't going to happen. So you need to clarify that with the individual. Right?
But
That makes
sometimes
sense?
the challenges for the employees, right? We call it. Then they're afraid to say no, right? Even if this is something that I totally didn't want to do, but then if my superior or my leader asked me to do so, I'm kind of forced to do that. Like, do you see that sometime? And now you're at that task you don't really like to do, and then you end up not
Sure.
doing a good job.
That's an important observation you just made. So when, for instance, an assignment has been offered to an individual, what I do, Swire, is I give them the paintbrush, and the canvas. Okay. I said, here's the assignment. It needs to be done by this date. Instead of me being a micromanager and telling you how to do it, let's get together and you tell me how you're going to make this succeed. Always give ownership of that process to the individual, because, Swire, if they come back with a Picasso on steroids and it's in complete alignment, now would be the time for me to know that. Okay. So if it comes back completely wacko, I know they don't have a complete grasp of how to do it. Okay. Why they're doing it and all those things. I'm setting them up for disaster. Now, flip that around. I give them the paintbrush, and the canvas, and they come back. They say, hey, Brian, here's my idea of how I'm going to make this project shine. That's what I'm looking for. But I need to know that as a leader before I just, let them go and hope to God it works out. So a good leader is always, just like in scouting, always prepared. Okay. Make sure you ask that question of the individual that's getting the assignment. And again, the only way I am confident somebody owns a concept, a technique, or a method is like the EDGE system in scouting. I have them teach it back to me and teach it back to their peers. If they can do that, then I know they own the concept. Then I still have to verify, is this something you really want to do? Yes or no. Not, yeah, maybe. No. It's yes or no. If it's no, that's fine. We'll find something else. What is it you would like to do? So the last thing we want to do is put somebody in a position they don't want to do it or they don't feel they can. So you look at those 5 reasons for non-performance ahead of time. Look at those ahead of time. I'm a big preventative medicine leader. Anything I can prevent, I'm gonna. Same thing in scouting, because things are going to pop up. You want to be as prepared as possible.
Yeah, it's
Drill,
good that
phrase,
we
yeah,
found that collation here
yeah.
today. I think a lot of the method can actually apply, for showing a little kid how to lift a rock safely, and then
Mm-hmm.
you end up, I was worried, for them to lift rocks for it's a landscaping project, right? So then I was surprised, once my son showed them how to lift rocks, they're actually so happy. Like for me living rocks like an old man, I don't like that, but I know sometimes I have to. But then seeing the kids lifting rocks and they're so happy laying those rocks, I'm like, okay, we found the right, people to do the right job. So I think I like the method. Actually, leadership is not you dictating how everyone should do the job. It's, I'll show you how to do it. You come back with a proposal,
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to do that. As a leader, you will approve it. And if they think of a way that, way beyond what you thought of, and that's how you improve. And I really like that approach instead of, dictatorship.
Yeah, and when I go into an organization, one of the first lists I ask for, Swire, is please provide a list of all your micromanagers. That's an attention getter, because if somebody's micromanaging somebody else, one of you isn't needed, and it's usually the micromanager. And in scouting, they say the 2 worst badges on the back of the uniform of a scout are the handprints of their parents. You gotta let them do it and have ownership in it. That's how they're going to learn. You know? So it's being to stretch them out of their comfort zone a little bit, try some new things, and that's where professional development really shines, right? How are we going to grow and stretch? Have you ever heard that question in an interview? Tell us about your strengths. Tell us about your weaknesses. You know,
All the time.
yeah. First of all, if you hear that in an interview, run, because that kind of went out in the '70s, but it still kind of floats around a little bit. And it's a tough question. Like, tell us about your strengths. Well, how do you do that without sounding awkward or cocky, right? When Abraham Lincoln was asked that question when he was running for office, tell us about your strengths. Tell us about your weaknesses, Mr. Lincoln. Tell us about your strengths, Mr. Lincoln. His response was, others have described me as ... Others have described me as ... Now think about that. It's polite, it's humble, it's courteous. It's also third-party evidence-based. Somebody else. I grew up in Detroit. We used to call that street cred. Somebody else is saying so other than you. That's validation. The weakness question can be a trap. It could be a reason for not getting assigned a project, not getting hired. Right? It could really mess with our attitude. So Lincoln's response to that one, tell us about your weaknesses, Mr. Lincoln. His response was, the three things I intend to tune up my first quarter in office are A, B, and C. He didn't talk about any weakness. He talked about continually learning. And he used the word intent. My intention, my first quarter in office, is to reparation of the South, foreign relations, restore the economy. Not I'd like to, not if rainbows and unicorns appear. All right, if everything was, no, I will do this. So that's a good way to short up. It's confident and also shows forward thinking, always learning. Just like in scouts, you advance. Just like in a leadership role, you advance. But you may not want to be a leader. You may just want to be a toy maker. Make sure you check. Like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify, right? Always ask, is this something you're interested in? Yes or no? If yes, here's how it's going to perform. Let's see your plan. If no, okay, good. What do you like to do? I like doing this. Good. All right, we'll keep you there. They may be just happy as all get out. But leaders leave nothing to chance. Always ask.
Yeah, so Barry, I know we touch on a lot of useful information, but then I want to ask you a bigger question, and then, for all the listener out there. So we for people who are listening, I'm sure that they want it to be better, right? If you're not, you won't be listening. So, are there any strategies that you would suggest for all of us who wants to be better, especially a post-pandemic world, that you wanted to, ask if us to work on? Obviously, we want to listen back for the 5 key elements that we can also work on. Or, like you said, I like that idea a lot. There's no strengths and there's no weaknesses. It's just how you interpret it, right? And then, maybe you are really strong at a certain area. Maybe you're not as strong as the other area. It doesn't make that it's your weakness. Maybe you just, defined for a different role, right? You can't do everything the right way. A leader can't go out and open the door, and you can drive the truck, or you can do the payroll all at the same time. So you have to delegate, right? So any suggestion? I know it's a big question, and
Well, it is. It's a big question, and it could really paralyze some business owners and leaders. So we'll keep it elegant in its simplicity. And there's a technique called stop, start, continue. Stop, start, and continue. This is very important for post-pandemic because we ain't going back to where it was before. The world has changed. Silver lining, it has impacted all of us. All right, so that's good. So stop, start, and continue. So with our team, always ask the question, what do we need to stop doing? Okay, it doesn't have to be bad. It just may mean we don't need to do it anymore. Because have you ever heard that? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Well, be careful there. Would you ever go to a physician that said that? Probably not. You want somebody with the, steady hands, but you want somebody with the cutting edge stuff, right? So there's only 1,440 minutes in the day. And how fast do those click by? So when you look at what can we kick to the curb, what can we eliminate and buy back some of those precious 1,440 minutes? Because wouldn't you agree, even with COVID, weeks are blending into days? So everyone's schedules are just like whacked right now. So everybody's got their foot to the gas. So what do we need to stop doing? And that's just good old-fashioned efficiency. What can we kick to the curb? Again, it doesn't need to be bad. Just may mean we don't need to do it anymore. Buy back some precious time. What do we need to start doing? Brand spanking new. Weird, cool, creative, and innovative. Our customers are expecting the cutting edge expertise that we can provide, correct? What is that? And that's got to come from the team. What can we do cooler, weirder, and different than we did last quarter? Brand spanking new. Always moving ahead. We're either progressing or regressing. There's no status quo. Okay? So what do we need to stop doing? What do we need to start doing? And what do we need to continue doing? And we've heard that phrase continuous improvement tossed around for years. All right, what does that really, really mean? Well, my experience is the best way to referee continuous improvement is don't just continue doing what we think we're doing well. Ask our customers, ask others that are impacted by us what they think we're doing well. Because what we may think is totally normal stuff may be magical to them. Let's make sure we continue to do that, right? So that's third-party, evidence-based performance improvement. Stop, start, and continue. So that's probably the easiest method in a post-pandemic. That way we're always reimagining what we're doing. We're taking that canvas, that Monet, Rembrandt, Van Gogh painting, always adding to it. Adding some daffodils, some waterfalls, all right? Some mountains, anything relevant to our industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think these are very good point. I think the businesses or organizations that fail they're not humble enough, because for asking other people to give you feedback on your business or your performance, sometimes it's intimidating, and sometimes they don't want to hear the true answers. But then these are the answers that you want. I want to have some not so nice feedback. Everything is fine, you're good. Then you're easy to get that. It's nice to get that. But then they tell you, I would like to see you change that a little bit, or maybe you could have done it better from your actual client. So I think if you're able to take those feedback and you are able to really change and implement it, that's how you're going to get better. Because at the end, it's the customers, the client, who are giving us the business. And if you're not changing and getting what they want, they have options out there.
That's very on point. Good leaders have said we'll learn more from our dissatisfied customers on how to improve than our satisfied. So always have that boldness. In fact, the 3 pillars to a leader are trust, respect, and credibility. I don't trust you because you're not credible. I don't respect you because I don't trust you. If any of those 3 waffle, all right, or are weak, we're going to stumble. Flip that around, and we demonstrate that, we're in good shape. That way we can lead our organization, we can lead our industry, lead our employees, put it together. So being bold and asking those customers, okay, what can we do to make this experience even better? Why did you decide to partner with us in the first time? How are you measuring your success in your organization based upon our relationship? So for you, when you ask that question to your customers, good responses. Well, Swire, you saved my bacon by providing some really good techniques for me to better my customer relations. Thank you. So their ROI may mean a lot of different things. It may be the ability to pass their business on to their kids, to open up new markets. What is that? So being bold, like you just said, and asking the question, daring to ask the question, hey, what can we improve upon? Where did we goof up? Well, you didn't goof up, but it's nice to ask, right? And they'll respect that. And that's where that trust, respect, and as they say, that street cred are established. That's a sign of a good leader in the industry.
Yeah, and then if you're a smart entrepreneur, you can actually find new opportunities by them telling you, these are always challenges that we wanted to find people to fix. Then you can actually find new services or find new products that could help your client. You could, grow your business big time. If you're
Yep,
knowing that there's a problem out there that needs to be solved, and you can do something about that, then you're in.
absolutely. And that leads to, probably the final point. How do we really grow? Always ask for the referral. And the referral
Mm.
doesn't have to be who else needs my stuff. No, no. You start out easy. Trust, respect, and credibility. And a simple question would be, Swire, who do you recommend I connect with? That simple. Pick up the phone, have a cup of coffee virtually, ask questions. One of my most defining moments, and I know we're coming in for a little bit of a close, but uh, when I was the director of sports medicine down at San Diego State, I had a mentor of mine, and she was a little 4'4" chief of orthopedic surgery. And we had just got done putting in a femoral rod on a player. It was late, Swire. It was probably about 3:45 in the morning. We're walking down the hall, we're bloody, finished the surgery, and the lights are starting to go down. And she looks at me, she goes, hey, Brian, you look really thirsty. You look like you could use a cold beer right about now. I go, oh, does that sound good? She goes, good, because I've got some in the doctor's lounge. Yeah, right on. So we kept walking. And then she said something that changed my life. She said, Brian, you can always tell somebody that's smart by the answers and the information they give. But you can always tell somebody that's wise by the questions they ask. She looked me right in the eyes right then. She said, now, which kind of leader are you going to be? I never, ever forgot that. So when we think we know it all, we tend to blab, wah, 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 wah. When we ask the right questions, though, and truly listen, the other person will describe precisely what they need. Our employees, our customers, our vendors. Then we can help each other. That's all this is. It's pretty simple when we boil it down. We just make it complex, don't we?
Yeah, I think that's all the experience come in. If you really know what you're doing, then you could probably ask more right question. And when you're starting out, so you might build onto the question that you have. So I think it's just going back to all the whys and how, and I like getting feedback from my client because
Mm-hmm.
they refine my question because I don't want to be arrogant and says this is the way that we always do it, but then there are always room for improvement. And if you are a company or leader that always find that improvement, then maybe at some point you become the best at what you do because you are constantly improving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's two buckets when I go in and consult with an organization, but even internally, one can ask two buckets. How are we structured? And then describe the team. So in post-pandemic, how are we structured? What do we need to stop, start, and continue there? Our team, post-pandemic, what do we need to stop, start, and continue? And when we ask those questions, we could really distill the right answers and where we need to go from all the grappa that's out there. Always include your teams. Good leaders always tap their managers when something's busted or something needs improving because the managers know how to fix it. And they know what really, really works. Because leaders lead people, managers lead processes. Okay? And with leaders support a world they help create. And people do too. Give them the paint, the paintbrush, and the canvas, right? Help them create it. Let them create it. Managers lead processes that make them look good. So managers are the ones that put the processes together. That's a really good perspective. So always be thinking about structure and the people. Stop, start, and continue in each.
Great. Thank you for giving all the thoughtful questions and points that to think about today. So, Brian, if listener want to reach out and talk to you more about getting better, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Well, by all means, and thank you for that. And always open to questioning, and be an honor and privilege to assist anyone. All right. So the best phone number, 310-484-6992. And that number again is 310-484-6992. We're far better in person than we are from behind a device. And we're way better in person, face to face, than we are over the phone. My email is brian@lighthouseleadershipgroup.com. So again, that's Brian, BRIAN, at lighthouseleadershipgroup.com.
Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on the show. Thank you for making the correlation with scouting and leadership. There's a match. So hopefully my kids will learn from this experience, and maybe someday they also become a good leader.
I'll hire any of your kids any day.
Thank you, Brian. Take care.
All right. Take care.